The 2010 Royal Rumble wasn't quite as good to me as the '08 and in particular the '09 shows. Not a terrible show, and I think most people at the time received it relatively all right because there were some strong performances and some good things in this show, but it wasn't quite up to the standard of '08 and '09 in my opinion. We start off the show with the ECW title match with Christian and Ezekiel Jackson. And this was an okay match. I thought Christian got just about as much out of Ezekiel Jackson as anybody ever has. Now, remember Ezekiel Jackson? Does the WWE remember Ezekiel Jackson? Is he still on their active roster? Why doesn't he ever get utilized? You would have thought back at this time in 2010 they were going to push Ezekiel Jackson to the moon. But as so often seems to happen with the WWE, they forget to push guys. They forgot that they have pushed guys. And in particular, they seem to forget that they push certain black wrestlers past a certain point. But a solid match here. Christian retained his title against Ezekiel Jackson. A good, solid opening match on this card, though. The next match, to me, is an example of a good feud when a belt actually meant something and what ended up being a poor match. And that was The Miz versus MVP for the United States Championship. I love when The Miz had the United States Championship because it always felt like that belt meant more because the WWE was behind The Miz. So they were always going to make sure that you had a feud for Cena, a feud for Orton, and a feud for The Miz with the United States title. And this feud between him and MVP I thought was very good. The match, on the other hand, left something to be desired. Felt kind of rushed, poorly booked, Then you get to, speaking of poorly booked in one way, but maybe not in another, you get the WWE Championship match between Sheamus and Randy Orton. Now, mind you, this is coming off of the heels of Sheamus winning the title from John Cena at TLC 2009. And now you've got him facing off with Randy Orton. You've got him going against another heel. And it seemed like you were in a rush to hurry up and put the belt on Sheamus, but you weren't serious about Sheamus having the belt. And you weren't serious about trying to develop his character. They did a lot of dumb shit with Sheamus' character back in 2010 that I feel still hurts the Sheamus character to this day. You've got this young, unique performer who you're trying to build into a monster. So you have him beat Randy Orton by disqualification. And why is that? Because you almost use Sheamus, your WWE champion, as nothing more than a mere plot device, mind you, to advance the breakup of legacy with Orton, Rhodes, and DiBiase. And here, in this case, Rhodes comes out to try and interfere and gets Orton disqualified. Then Orton attacks Rhodes, and DiBiase comes out, and he tries to save the day, and all of this other shit. You made your monster champion, the guy that the focus should be on, by maybe having him beat Orton clean, or at least pinning him in the damn ring. And maybe even then, if you sit there and said, well, you could have had Rhodes interfere accidentally and cost Orton the match, fine. At least Sheamus would have gotten a pinfall victory over Randy Orton. But not at this time. We just couldn't do that, could we? We had to have Sheamus look fucking stupid. That way we had to do this other stupid shit, which was eventually leading to Randy Orton turning babyface, which I still argue to this day the WWE didn't realize was going to happen, wasn't prepared for it to happen, and didn't know it was going to happen because they're morons. You positioned Randy Orton in a spot where he could turn babyface, which became disastrous for all parties involved. And I look back at this match and I say how fucking stupid this really was. Then you get the Divas Championship match that blink and you missed it, Mickie James and Michelle McCool, but I'm okay with that. Because every once in a while, it's okay to have these matches where the heels lose very quickly. I think it's better sometimes that they lose quickly as opposed to losing in a long, drawn-out battle. Well, you know, with all the stuff with Mickie James dealing with Cool, with Layla wearing a fat suit and them calling her Picky James, you know, this match went less than 30 seconds. It's all it needed to do. It was Mickey's last Women's Championship Divas title win. It was her last time as champion. It came right here. Then we get to what I thought was the match of the night, which was Undertaker versus Rey Mysterio for the World Heavyweight Championship. This was a really good match. These guys both put on a really good show. And this was at a point in time where I actually did think Undertaker was going to carry the belt into WrestleMania. I knew at the time they were making it so obvious that it was going to be Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels too. But I thought Taker was going to carry that strap all the way into Mania. That's what I thought at the time. You know, before anything else, I thought Taker was going to beat Mysterio, go on to the Mania main event. Him and Michaels are going to face off again. Michaels got a shot. It was title and streak versus career. That's what I thought was going to happen. It didn't end up happening that way, and that's okay because it ended up working out. But this was a really good match, and like I said, to me, the match of the night. And then we get to the Royal Rumble match itself. It wasn't the greatest Rumble match, but it had a couple of notable things that happened. Notably to me, first off, is CM Punk and his performance here. He was fucking awesome. The only thing that made me mad about this is that CM Punk, didn't last a lot longer in this Rumble match. He should have lasted longer. He should have. And continued to cut promos all throughout. God, that would have been fucking awesome. That really would have been. It would have been. But unfortunately, that's not what ended up happening. As far as anything else that was of note here, namely, you've got Shawn Michaels and the whole story of Taker's the champion. He had just won the belt, so you're setting up the story of this is Shawn Michaels' last chance to get what he really wants, which is a rematch against Taker at WrestleMania. Excuse me. Only, ultimately, he doesn't get it because he gets eliminated by Batista, even kind of sort of accidentally in a way. And it's awesome the way Shawn Michaels really sold this. He's hanging onto the ropes, and then he loses grip of the ropes and he falls down. And he sells the devastation, and he sells how emotional of a moment this was, and how his one last dream had just come crashing down right in front of his eyes. It was awesome the way this was done. And Shawn Michaels at times could be as good of a storyteller as anybody, and this was a clear and present example of that. But the big moment, of course, to me, was as you got Chris Jericho sitting there and you got Cena sitting there, all of a sudden here comes Edge, coming back off of his torn Achilles. Of course, he had forgotten apparently to do any sit-ups, but I won't shame him too much for that now like I was back in 2010. He decided to get himself into rehab. He got himself into shape, got himself physically ready to go, but the midsection could have used a little bit of work here, and you can clearly see that he had some ring rust, and he wasn't fully 100% tip-top ring shape here. But it made for that great moment. That's what I always love about the Rumbles, when you get those great moments. There's Jericho kind of stuttering around, all of a sudden music hits, and here's Edge's music. And Jericho's like, oh, that was my tag team partner before he tore his Achilles, and God, that was awesome. What a moment. And, you know, even as I was sitting there, I actually still was afraid that at one point in time, they were going to sit there and they were going to have John Cena still win this Rumble, even with Edge coming back. I'm like, they can't be that fucking stupid, can they? Can they really have Cena win this? When John Cena was the last person eliminated and Edge won the Rumble, I legitimately, truly marked out. This was awesome. And the way it ended up playing out to me was okay. At the next pay-per-view Elimination Chamber, you have Chris Jericho win the title because Shawn Michaels interferes with Undertaker. That sets up Michaels Undertaker. Now Edge wins the Rumble. He could go after his old tag team partner Jericho. Batista and Cena were two of the last three left in this Rumble match. They end up finding a way to get those guys into a world title match at WrestleMania 26. So this Rumble show did set up quite a few number of good things heading into WrestleMania. But I don't think the Rumble match was as strong as maybe the previous 2 years, and I don't feel the show overall was as strong as 2008 or 2009.